looking as the flowers. I sit for hours, telling all the bluebirds, the bill and coo birds, pretty little baby.
25, and I think this might be my most, or second maybe most controversial pick. It's Daniel Bryan, Batista, and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30. I know people love this. A lot of people have this in their top 10. I just was never a Daniel Bryan fan. So this is not an WWE, AEW thing, anything like that. He just never did it for me. So that whole, yes era, whatever, yes movement, all that, never did it for me. I would have been happy if Triple H beat him in the first match, but he didn't. That was a better match, actually. I actually think Triple H versus Daniel Bryan was a better match, the opener of WrestleMania 30, than the closing match. It was okay, but I think we all knew he was going to win. So that was going to happen, and people want it, and that's not a problem, because sometimes that can happen, and sometimes the most obvious thing can be the right thing and the right decision, and that was fine, and everyone loved it, and I know I'm in the minority here, and I could accept that, because that happens in opinions and that, but that, for me, that's why it just makes the top 25. 24 is Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 19. Arguably, this match is most memorable for Brock Lesnar trying to do a shooting star press and almost breaking his neck, but this is a really good match. Again, we had Austin and The Rock's last match, so that kind of overshadowed it. We had a really good match between Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels earlier in the there's a theme there with Shawn Michaels earlier in the night, so that always didn't help it, but I thought it was good. It was good. It was, so where are we? We're probably in the middle of the pack. It was probably the middle of the WrestleMania main events. Could they have a better match? Yeah. Did they have better matches? Probably. I can't remember. You would think Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle did have better matches. But it was good. It did its service. 23, again, this might be a controversial one, because I think I've definitely seen this in people's top 10, top 15. Is The Undertaker and Edge from WrestleMania 24. I really enjoyed this. This is good. Now we're in the good category here. And again, we're talking about WrestleMania main events. So these are generally good, big, epic storylines that have been built over months and that. So, even the mid stuff is good and worth watching again. And Undertaker versus Edge was good. Again, this is a personal thing. Never a huge Undertaker guy, never a huge Edge guy. So for me, I think there's 23 better matches at that main event at WrestleMania. That's what I would say. But a good match, solid match, and a really good ending. Like the ending sequence of the spear into Hell's Gate submission is excellent. That was the highlight of the match for me. 22 is WrestleMania 37 Night 2, where Roman Reigns smashed and stacked Edge and Daniel Bryan. I thought this was good. I actually, at a point, was going to put this a bit higher. I thought this was a really good match. Again, this is probably or at least a big moment in the Tribal Chief's journey. It was quite early into, I think he'd become champion in September, so he was defending against that. And the funny part of this was that, they were like, they put Daniel Bryan in a match, Edge doesn't take the pin or something like that, I remember. And he literally pins one on top of the other. So he had the epic part of the stacking of that, and I remember him beating the living hell. I think he concertos them, he beats him at Jay is obviously the right hand man at the time, so he's helping. But a pretty good match, and again, look, like I said, we're at number 22 now, so we're in the sort of middle part. These are good matches now. These are only good matches, and we get to good to great to awesome as the list goes on. And at 21, just before we get into the top 20, is WrestleMania 4. So going back in time by quite a few years, 38 years ago, and it's Randy Savage versus Ted DiBiase. I think this is the best early WrestleMania, one of the best early, well, it is the best of the first few WrestleManias matches. These two could both go in the ring, Ted DiBiase and Randy Savage. If you haven't watched some of their wrestling, they could go. They were proper wrestlers. They were wrestlers who would look not out of place nowadays in terms of wrestling. They were obviously a bit smaller than some of the others, but they could go. It was really cool, Randy Savage getting his moment. This was before my time of started watching wrestling, so I'd go back and watch it. So probably already knew the results, so you never get the same thing. But I can imagine it was pretty cool when you had Hulk Hogan in every main event from 1, 2, and 3, and then you had Randy Savage getting crowned. Even though Hulk Hogan was there in the background, of course he was probably lifting up Elizabeth and doing all of that. But then it leads to a year storyline of the Mega Powers, so it's a good continuation. And I thought this was it's a good match, and it's cool to see Randy Savage win the title in the main event. Only one of his 2 main events that he ever did at WrestleMania. So that is number 21. Right, at number 20, again, might be a controversial choice for a few, but I was there in Texas, and to get to see Stone Cold wrestle one more time in Texas in a WrestleMania main event against a KO who did a magnificent job of building up that, because he did it all by himself, because Stone Cold hadn't appeared and wasn't appearing until WrestleMania itself, from the KO show to a match. Even the chat in the ring before, for me, this was great. Just to roll back the years, and yes, was Stone Cold at his prime? No. Did he do a really good job? Yes. Did KO do an amazing job of getting him through this match and not injuring him and not getting injured himself? Absolutely. So for me, this was just, I don't know how many, was it 60, 70,000 people in Texas or something like that, 50 to 70,000, whatever the attendance was. Being there, it was quite a late decision me and my friend made to go there. It was just after the COVID restrictions were lifted. We had to do a COVID test to get the plane. Absolutely worth it. WrestleMania 38 is an underrated WrestleMania. WrestleMania 38 night 1 is up there with, if you're talking about one night of a card, because you had Cody Rhodes returning against Seth in an epic. You had Bianca versus Becky it's arguable that's one of the best women's matches it's not. It is one of the best women's matches at WrestleMania. So WrestleMania night 1 was, WrestleMania 38 night 1 was a great night, and it capped off with this. And you got everything. You got the beer, you got the stunner, you got him on the mic, you got him and KO on the mic, everything. And they did it so well. Pushed him to his limit at, what was he, 56 or something at the time. And to have his last match like that in Texas is huge, and it felt huge. 19 may be a controversial pick, because I'm going to pick the cinematic match at WrestleMania 36 night 1. So it's the first ever two night WrestleMania, the first ever main event of a 2-night WrestleMania, which is the Boneyard match, cinematic match, and WWE had to try something different. And it is actually Undertaker's last match against AJ Styles. I loved it. I thought it was really cool. We'd never seen stuff like that. And if you've been watching all of these, you'll hear me talk about Drew versus Brock in no audience for night 2's main event. And that was a struggle. But WWE made some new content. They did this. They tried something different. Obviously, it's a famous meme now, The Undertaker appearing behind AJ Styles. But it's also a really entertaining match. Like, even the entrances, AJ Styles comes in as The Undertaker at first, and you do that. It's a cool moment in time. It's a good way of giving Undertaker his last match, in my opinion, because the last few at WrestleMania weren't great. And I think this gave him a really, really good send-off in terms of that. So, yeah, it breaks my number 19. At number 18, and this could have been higher, and I was trying to balance my own bias. So I'm going for WrestleMania 40 night 1, which is The Rock and Roman Reigns against Cody and Seth. I've heard people say it's too long and all that. I was there in Philadelphia, and this was the cold night. WrestleMania night 1 was freezing. It was epic. Like, you get to see The Rock wrestle and do a good job and have so many epic moments in this match. Now I'm arguing this myself, because I think this should be higher than 18, but I've tried to counteract everything counteract all my thoughts and my biases and trying to put it in. But this arguably should be higher. So I'm going to say that now, but I've done the order and I can't change it now. I love this. This was brilliant. You had so many moments in it, even up to the last moment where The Rock does the people's elbow, says it's for you, Mama Rhodes, and salutes the Bloodline. The Rock had joined the Bloodline. You have to remember, this was part of the best 4 months from January to April 2024, the best 4 months of wrestling, in my opinion, you're ever going to get. Like, from build up to event, and you got it. And I think The Rock did a fantastic job. The Rock got rock bottom through a table, followed seconds later by Seth Rollins getting a spear, and the holy shit chants were amazing in Philadelphia. It was just like, you knew you were watching something special. You knew maybe The Rock had one match after this left in him, and he still hasn't had that match, and maybe he still hasn't going to have that match, depending on what happens, and he's getting older each year. But you knew you were watching something, and you had watched a culmination of the fans getting involved, the Cody Crybabies, and changing what it is, WWE tilting and going that way and creating something special. So I absolutely love this. Again, there's a bias that I was there. I've tried to counteract that bias, and for that reason, it's number 18. 17 is Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage. Mega Powers Explode at WrestleMania 5. This is really good. This is one of Hogan's best matches, and it's his second highest match, I believe. So I can't think of anything on this. He does a really good job here, Hogan. I think this is prime Hulk Hogan in terms of in the ring. Savage great dance partner for him because he's great in the ring. The ending is not what I would have wanted, but they played the whole storyline with Elizabeth really well. It feels like a WrestleMania main event. Again, it was like almost a year build up. So Savage wins the title, WrestleMania 4, their tag team. There's the whole Elizabeth jealousy storyline. Randy Savage turns heel on a Saturday night's main event, which is great. If you haven't checked it out, watch it. The attacks about it's something that you would see happen in the last 10, 20 years rather than something that was now, bloody hell, how long is that? 38 years ago, Jesus. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it's Hogan's second best match at WrestleMania. Savage's, well, best match obviously in the main event at WrestleMania. Not his best match at WrestleMania, but the best match in the main event at WrestleMania. Number 16 is the first ever women's main event, which was Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. I was there. So I was there in New York for this, and I can tell you now that this absolutely suffered from the fatigue. This was like I think the actual show was 5 hours. The pre-show was like an hour and a half and a battle royal or whatever it was. I think we were there at this point for like 6 hours in the stadium in New Jersey, and you don't want to know the story because it's nothing to do with this match, but it took us about 4 hours to get home because the public transport had stopped and you couldn't get an Uber for love nor money or a cab or anything outside. They've changed that massively because we went to SummerSlam last year in New Jersey and it was a much more pleasant journey out of there. But it was just the length. I think if they had cut out 2 of the matches earlier, it wasn't because the women were main eventing. Becky was so over. She was huge, organically over at the time. Ronda had done a massive good job to get women elevated, and Charlotte Flair. I think it's a good match. I think it's a really good match, actually. And I just think it just suffers from the crowd. It suffers from the tiredness in the crowd. If this match, like I said, if you had cut an hour out of that show, which you could easily cut an hour of that show, this would have been, I think, higher on many people's lists. But for that reason, and the crowd do make a match, it's number 16. Number 15 is a match I know people rate higher, is Chris Benoit, if we can say his name, against Triple H and Shawn Michaels in a triple threat match. This was done really well. Obviously, this is just tainted for life and forever now because of what happened with Chris Benoit. But this is a really, really good triple threat. And this is one I would say, unlike the Daniel Bryan one, I didn't think I'm a Shawn Michaels fan, so I want Shawn Michaels to win. But I didn't think it was such a given that Chris Benoit was going to win, especially at that time, because he was Chris Benoit from WCW. You had your WWE prime boys in Triple H and Shawn Michaels. They did a fantastic job. It was a great triple threat, and that's why it makes the top 15. And 15 might not sound that high, but it's 15 out of 47, and it's 15 out of 47 WrestleMania main events. We're not just talking about matches, we're talking about WrestleMania main events. So top 15 is a good place, I believe, for it. In a weird coincidence, like number 33, 14 is WrestleMania 14, and it's Stone Cold Steve Austin against Shawn Michaels, with the special guest referee, Mike Tyson, who actually turned out not to be the referee and just the outside enforcer, even though he does count a very quick 1, 2, 3. This was really good. Shawn Michaels, this is Austin's start of his absolute peak. You know, he had got there, and this was him winning the title at WrestleMania from Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, again, and this is testament to Shawn Michaels, he then was off for 4 years with a back injury. His back was done in this. You could see it. He was in absolute agony, even just doing his flying elbow off the top rope. You watch this match again. So for him to get this match and to carry this match through was why I will hands down say Shawn Michaels is the best in-ring wrestler of all time, and I don't think I will live to see the day where we see a better in-ring performer than Shawn Michaels. It was a great moment for that, and it's weird. Obviously, Tyson then punches Shawn Michaels afterwards. It's fun. It's not weird. It was just funny because he comes in and just counts too quickly, Mike Tyson. But yeah, that was pretty good. Number 13 is WrestleMania 22, which is John Cena versus Triple H. I was there in Chicago. This was actually my first WrestleMania. It's actually my first wrestling event. So my first wrestling event I ever went to was WrestleMania 22 in Chicago. Such a hot crowd. It was in the Allstate Arena, which was called Rosemont. Was it had changed to the Allstate Arena then at that point? I don't know. But it's obviously a historical Chicago venue, obviously favoured by the likes of CM Punk. CM Punk was part of the entrance, as I'm sure you all know. If you don't know your trivia, was part of John Cena's entrance as like a gangster entrance. This was epic because the crowd was so hot and they were so in favour of the bad guy, Triple H. And it was really cool to see John Cena win and to see him win by tapping Triple H out. It was a really good moment. And it was obviously the start, well, not the start because Cena had already won the belt before, but it was the start of Cena's journey in terms of being the face of the company and such like. So the next one is number 12, and it is John Cena the next year against Shawn Michaels. I think this is a better match just because Shawn Michaels is a better wrestler than Triple H. I remember watching this and being sad because I wanted Shawn Michaels to win, but knowing in my head that John Cena was going to win. But Shawn Michaels got an absolute banger out of John Cena in this match. I think it was in Detroit, and it would have been nice to see Shawn Michaels win, but again, that's just my personal opinion in terms of it. But I think, again, and he wins the same way, and I think it's cool. He taps out. I mean, if you want to make a guy, and obviously John Cena was being made at this time, and he's obviously, as we've just seen with his retirement tour, is one of the all-time greats of WWE. You get him to tap out, you know, if you think of like Vince's boys, Triple H, and then you get him to tap out Shawn Michaels the next year. But really good match, and that was number 12. And just not making the top 10, and I know this is in people's top 10s, is Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Usos, WrestleMania 39, Night 1 in California. We were there, I was there for this match. There was an incredibly hot crowd. They had done such a good job in building up this rivalry and to get the tag teams. If you think of where tag teams are at the moment, you think to get the tag teams at the main event of night one, there is a big argument because I think the match that preceded this, which was Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley, is a better match. Obviously that was thing, and they almost went out there, Charlotte, and with a chip on their shoulder that they should have been the main event. I would say history could rewrite it. You can't, obviously, there's no point in looking back and trying to rewrite it. That should have been the main event, but this was still epic. This was an epic main event, and it was a moment. KO and Sami Zayn, who had reunited after Sami Zayn had left the bloodline, to that. I think you have to remember back to, what is it now, 3 years ago, how over Sami and KO were, how over Sami was, how over the Usos were, like in terms of a tag team and what they were doing. And also, the Usos were champions, double tag team champions at the time, because that's how it was the bloodline for so long. So it felt like a huge deal, them winning. And obviously, the Roman Reigns and Usos kept cheating to keeping their titles. So it was a big deal. And I think it made night 2, which we're going to talk about soon because it's obviously in the top 10 or 39, even bigger.